Google Maps. So how many people have used Google Maps? Okay, good. Good. You guys are all winners. So this is what, here we go. How do I get it to, yeah, okay. I don't usually use Max. So bear with me. It's too big, dude.
Maximize.
Push the green.
It's not green. Look at that thing.
User interface
cool.
problems.
Yeah, Apple is the worst one. Okay, so this is Google Maps, right? Now what this is basically, it just uses, Google Maps is entirely using JavaScript and CSS in order to create like an interactive UI. There are some like Yahoo Maps, they have a Flash version of their maps. And I think Microsoft uses some ActiveX and stuff, but we're all basically, because we're trying to be as compatible as possible, so this is all JavaScript, CSS, and it's supported in like Safari 2.3, Firefox 1.52, IE 6.7, etc. So we transport a lot of browsers. So all this is just a bunch of image tiles, and it's really obvious what is happening if you, dude, where'd the thingy go?
So technical.
Oh, I get it. No. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so there's this little toolbar I like to use that will outline images, for example. So now this is just a good way of demonstrating that Google Maps is really just a series of images that are being moved around in CSS. So I just like to point that out to people so they understand the magic of maps before they delve into it. Because some people think like we dynamically regenerate a new image every time you go to the map, and that would take a long time. So this is designed to work for low bandwidth as well. All right, so cool. So that's Google Maps. So the Google Maps API is basically just a subset of Google Maps. We literally just take the JavaScript and we export just a subset of the functions that we need for API users. And it arose when there was a guy that was bored and he was working at Pixar, and he really wanted a good way to find Craigslist apartment listings. And so he saw Google Maps, was like, well, maybe I can hack this. He downloaded all the JavaScript, he tweaked around with it, and he was able to make a hacked version. And then Google was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Other people might want to use that. So then, based on that, they created the API. So this, what we have here, is a set of slides. However, these aren't PowerPoint slides. These are actually all slides that have interactive maps inside them. So this is an entirely map-based presentation, except for that first slide. All right.
It's also, I think we link to it on our website, right?
Yes.
So if you go to googleworkshops.googlemashups.com, you'll see a link for Tuesday slides, so you can follow along on your own machine if you'd like.
Okay. So as I said, the Maps API is a JavaScript API. So this is like the very basics that you need in order to create a map. So let's just go over this. The first thing that we need is we have to include via a script tag the actual Maps API JavaScript. So what you do is when you include this, it goes off to the Google Maps server, it grabs the file, and then it puts it into your page, and then you're able to use all the functions from the API. And this is the way a lot of our JavaScript APIs are set up, so you'll get used to this. The next thing we need to do is when in the body onload function, so when the DOM is ready. So this is really important whenever you're doing something with JavaScript and modifying the DOM, you need to make sure the DOM is ready before you do any operations on it, right? So I can't create a map in a div that doesn't exist, okay? So we have to wait until the DOM is ready. So we actually have, it doesn't show this here, but we actually have a div inside the DOM that is just called map. So it's like div ID equals map, and then it has a width, in this case, of like 100%, and then a height of like 500 or something. So what we do is we say we want a new GMAP2, and we'd say, okay, this is the DOM element that you want to create that map in, and then we need to set the center. You can't have a map without a center, otherwise, I just don't know what would happen. It would be chaos. And you actually get a JavaScript error too. Yay. But so you set the center to a glat long. So what a glat long is it's a latitude longitude coordinate. Does anyone here know what latitude and longitude are? Yay. What? That's not a common thing to know. Hey, where?
They're right here.
Cool. Okay, who wants to explain what it is? Okay. Explain.
These are like lines on the Earth, how Earth is divided into verticals and horizontal lines.
Right.
And starts from 0 degrees to 90 degrees. Latitudes are vertical, horizontal lines, and longitudes are vertical lines.
Right. So what's the equator?
Equator is at the 0 degree center of the Earth.
Okay.
The latitude.
Right. Exactly. So basically, we want to be able to
Oh,
identify.
I got one yesterday, so
Okay. Fine.
somebody else. Sorry.
If someone just repeated what he said, you'll get a ball.
Wait. You probably did not get a mug.
Thanks.
So right, so basically we need to be able to
Say about
identify
2
any
balls, you get a
spot
bite.
on the Earth
Or
as a coordinate, right? In order to be able to place anything there. So we've chosen arbitrarily to divide it with latitude and longitude lines. So 0 is the equator, and then you have like international date line, which causes all kinds of math problems. half of our bugs are related to the date line, especially when you try and like draw stuff across the date line because your math has to go crazy. But anyway, if we could get rid of the date line, it'd be great, but I'm not sure how that works. So important thing to know, because a lot of people ask like, well, I have an address. Why can't I just tell Google to put a marker at that address? Well, the reason is that an address isn't really a mathematical way to talk about a part of the map, right? Like think about it. If I told you an address, could you tell me the latitude and longitude off the top of your head? Right? So the thing is, the process of converting an address to latitude and longitude is something called geocoding. And so anytime you create a map, you basically have to do geocoding if either address is as your raw data, right? And now the thing about geocoding is that it's not a perfect science. So figuring out what the coordinate is of an address, it's not easy, right? Somebody gives you, so my address like 662 Loma Verde, Mountain View, California, right? And so then we have to have this giant database that somehow knows like where this road is and somehow knows where the number on that road is. And we do, kind of, but we just rely on like data from all these data providers. And the data, like, what if suddenly, like, I guess my house used to be 666 Loma Verde, right? So recently, yeah, we should have been awesome because then our address would have been 666. However, it got changed, right? So things change, like houses get added, streets change, they get demolished, earthquakes occur. Whatever, right? They like push the streets over. Data changes and we can't react fast enough, so therefore geocoding will never be perfect. So that's something to know, is when you're using a geocoder and you're like, oh my god, I didn't get it perfect. It's like, well, you try converting every single address into the world in latitude, longitude, and you'll find it's rather difficult.
yeah.
Right? So I challenge you to, make something better than Google Geocoder. Don't tell me Yahoo or Microsoft. So there are quite a bit of geocoding resources out there, and we actually do provide one in the API as well. That you can use from JavaScript or via the HTTP service. It's a REST service, like you just talked about. And the other thing you can do is a little bit of a hack, but this is what I always tell people to do. So actually the Google Maps geocoder is actually different from the Google Maps API geocoder because we have different data providers because of licensing issues. So most people tend to think that there's slightly better data in Google Maps. We're not sure of that, but just to be sure, you can always do your geocode with Google Maps if you go like this. So if somebody give me an address. Come on, and nobody wants to tell me where you live.
Orchard even. 2827. Orchard even.
What is it?
Orchard. O-R-C-H-R-D.
Oh, Orchard? Okay, what's the number?
2827.
2827?
9007.
Avenue 9007. Okay. So let's do that. Alright, and let's also turn off the images.
Sunbathing in the backyard, I see.
Okay, so there's that address, right? So then we just double click on the map to center that on that address, and if you would have linked to this page, you'll get this long link, right? So paste that, and then where's text edit? Let's go to text edit. All right, so now let's look at this really long URL. So as you can see, make it bigger.
Where's that?
Apple T.
Yeah. Bigger. Bigger. Bigger.
Apple Plus.
Bigger.
Hamlet. Apple
Okay.
Plus.
Okay.
You have to hit the shift key.
All right. Okay, good. All right, cool. So what we have here is that we're sending a query for this geocode, blah, 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 blah. The important parameter is this one, and LL. Guess what that stands for? Latitude, longitude. Very nice. Okay, so this is what we have is the latitude. So remember the latitude is the stuff that goes, I'm really bad with my left and right.
Longitude is long.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so latitude starts at 0 and then goes up to 90, and the longitude like starts over here and then goes to like -180 or whatever. So this is 34, and then -118, blah, blah, blah. Something to know is that the most digits of precision you ever need currently for Google Maps is about 6 digits of precision. You won't be able to really tell a difference beyond that. So like when you're making a database, I always make it with numbers that have 6 digits of precision, since there's no point in storing more. So the cool thing is you can just copy and paste that, and then you can put it. So actually, we can modify the example that we have right there, maybe. Remember if we could. Maybe we'll do it. The next one, we'll do it in the next one, maybe. All right. So yeah, we could have just replaced. If we changed it to the new latitude longitude, then it would set the center at that address. The other thing we have here, 14. Can anyone guess what 14 is?
Zoom level.
We're gonna have to get more people answering. You guys are so people. The zoom level, right? So do you know how many zoom levels we have about?
19.
Right, so the default is 19. There are a few areas that have 21 where we took like super high-res photos of people and you can see them like, I remember there's like a bunch of Arabs on camels and stuff. And then in Australia we did a flyover, so you see all these people like happily playing beach volleyball and stuff. So and I think in a couple of those areas we do actually have 21.
The Google Campus.
Google Campus, I believe
Top
it's 19.
secret. Aw.
Yeah. Unless you want to give us some high-res imagery.
Yes.
There's actually, I have a picture of you sunbathing. That's kind of gross. But so what we have is that when we're zoomed out, so 19 is like the most like magnified, like really far in, and then 1 would be like the whole world, right? So that's our zoom level. Oops, went way too fast. All right, cool. So from now on, we can actually just run the stuff that's here. Oh, so let's take that. Do I still have that latitude longitude? Yeah, I do. All right. So first, we're going to set the center there, and then we're using set timeout. It's a JavaScript function to say after a certain amount of time, go and do this thing. So we're going to use a set timeout just to pan to a different place. So that centering, well, it went really fast. We'll run it again. So you can see, you can actually tell that it's loading in the tiles. That way it works. All right, let's run that again.
Yeah,
all right, so we're centered Los Angeles, and then it goes to Montreal. So we can zoom in a little bit farther. So let's see, 18. Oh, we don't even have 18. Pain. Yeah, we don't have imagery everywhere in the world, especially like remote islands. We get a lot of people who are like, well, you don't have imagery for this island that's, you know, off the coast of Africa 300 miles. It's like, yeah, well, we didn't think you'd go there.
You caught us.
Yeah. Right. So there you go. There's using the set center and pan to, so you can just smoothly pan to other areas or jump to it. The next thing we have are controls. So the controls are the things you're used to on Google Maps. So they're the things like, if we go here, we have, this is called the G large map control in API terms. So this lets us zoom in, also lets us pan, so it's much easier just to drag. And then we also have this map type control here, so we can go between the different map types. Terrain is actually really pretty. We just launched this recently. If you've never seen Terrain, it's beautiful. It's funny because anyone who's used Terrain on their site, like I go to their site and I'm like, whoa, 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 did they switch? Are they using a different mapping, like a different like Yahoo or Microsoft? Because I'm so not used to seeing Terrain that I forget that it's ours. No, this isn't just like a Google Maps promo, okay? Yeah, you can, if you use Street View, then you can like look at people's cats in their windows and stuff. They take cars and they drive down the streets, yeah.
Can you use Street View with the API at all?
Not yet.
Intent.
Or you could see abnormally short cars if they got caught right in the transition.
Yeah. You can see people like walking in and out of sketchy places.
I've seen those cars driving down the freeway too. There's like was like this bullhorn thing. There's the camera going that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. It's like
Yeah.
an array.
Right, because it takes it at increasing resolutions. So it's pretty interesting. And then Chicago, I believe, that's where the Sears Tower is, right?
Thanks.
In Chicago, they even took it up so that when you move up, you're like, whoa, tower. Okay, so if we want to add controls to the map, we just add controls via those commands there. And there are a couple of these. So that you actually see this is different from the one on Google Maps. It's a little smaller since a lot of mashups are smaller. And then we've got the map type control there. And there's a few other options. You could add a scale. You could add a little mini map in the corner there. And yeah, those are good. So the next thing we have in the API is, so he talked about JavaScript events yesterday. So we have some special events that we trigger in the Maps API, and so you can set up event listeners to listen to those events, and we also have some special functions to make it easier to listen to those events, and those are all in the gEvent namespace. So here's an example where we're going to add a listener, and the object that we're adding the listener to is the map. So that means that we expect the map to trigger that event, and you can look at our documentation and see like all the events that we trigger. So map can be clicked, it can do mouse, it can do move end, it can do move, double click, very nice. Mouse move, I believe. So, huh?
Right.
Yes, there actually is. Single right click is the name of it. Yep. A lot of people use that to like do a context menu or
To and from.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So map, and the event we're listening for is the move end event, and that gets triggered whenever you finish panning or zooming the map. So a lot of times people listen to that if they want to like update like the markers that are shown and go get some new markers. And in this case, when it moves, we're going to have a function that alerts the new center of the map. And then we're also just going to remove the listener so that it won't happen the next time it gets moved. So that's something you can do as well. Because if you have a lot of event listeners on your map and you never remove them, you might have some memory issues. So here we'll do an example. Oh, right, so I have to move the map to demonstrate. There we go. It alerts the new glet long. And you have it. You remember you actually don't need all these details here. We could fix that, but it's okay. All right, so then we have the infamous info windows. Some people call them bubbles. You call them bubbles, yes. Well, you're wrong. So wait, do I still have the? I want the old place. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're gonna go to his house now. So everyone, party at his house later.
Ice cream cheeseburgers for all.
Okay. So we can be like. So actually, instead of this, it's gonna be. We'll write. What's your name?
GAURA.
No.
Gotta use
GRS.
your stage name.
Gurus. Gurus. Okay. It's probably wrong. So we're going to set the center at his house. You know, I'm really excited, so I just had to make it really big. And then all we're doing, so we set the center to the location. You know, we should zoom in more so we can see what his house looks like. So what do we decide? We do maybe 617? Let's try that. All right, good, very nice. Were you out there, Ben? Yep, here we go. All right, so then, so we set the center, and then we just say open an info window on the map. You give it the point that you want it to open it at, and then just the text that are going to be in there. You can also send in like a DOM element as well. And you can also open info windows on markers, and so that'll just actually open the info window on top of the marker instead. There we go. All right, so markers. So I keep talking about markers. Everyone knows what the markers are, right? What color is the Google Maps marker?
Red.
Yellow.
Good, we have a couple. You win. Yay. So the infamous one that I like to think of, and the one that's default in the API, is the red marker that has a little dot in the middle.
Because you're a Trojan.
Yeah, it's because I'm a Trojan. Although it's kind of a pansy red. It's definitely not 9900.
So she actually went as a map marker for Halloween. You can pull up her picture on Facebook.
Yeah, actually I went as a two colored map marker. So I had the red one in the front, and then like when I turned around, I was blue. Does anyone know what the blue markers signify?
Box Canyon. Destination, I think.
No. So yeah, that's tricky because we've added that recently. Let's see if we can pull up. So I think I know how to find it. So I'm going to search for Sleepless in Seattle. Looking at maps like Google.com. How's your internet doing? Oh, it's got it. All right, cool.
Len ISD. Right?
Wait, so the first thing we're going to do is, let's see, show search options. So we want to search in user-created content. This is going to be a good clue. Okay, blue markers. So what are the blue markers? Yay! Does anyone actually know what those user-created content, where it comes from?
Sometimes in web.
Web searches?
Do you know what type of files they are?
KML.
Yay! Wait, who just said that? Nice.
Woo.
So they are KML files, and we're actually going to make one today as part of the Code Lab. So the thing is, you know, as part of sitemaps, you can have your sites indexed by Google. You can actually now include KML files in your sitemap, so that tells the Googlebot to index the KML files as well. So that's pretty interesting because then any sites that have geodata, they can show up in Google Maps search as well as in like our universal search. So that's pretty nifty. So that's why I went as the red marker and the blue marker because I consider blue marker like the future. Yeah. So anyway, so back to markers. So a marker is a type of something we call a G-overlay, and that's an interface and a couple different things that implement that. So it's basically something that can be added to the map and then moves along with the map. So a marker is kind of the most basic one. So the first thing we want to do is put it at a latitude, longitude. And then here we have our options that we're going to specify, and the title is basically like a tooltip when you roll over it. And so we're going to make a new marker at that point with those options, set the center at that point as well, and then add the marker to the map. So here we have the infamous red marker. And there's a couple more interesting options that you can play with. We're gonna do the G icon one for the workshop, and that way you can change it. I always tell people, like when I do sometimes I do like UI presentations, I always tell people please don't use the red marker. It's honestly not that attractive. There are much prettier markers out there, and I believe in your ability to Photoshop one. So yeah, so that's a cool thing is that you can easily replace the icon that's used for that marker. And now we have icons. Yay! Okay, so an icon, the way we need to find that, we create a new G icon, and then we set some properties of it. So markers are actually kind of complicated. If you actually study like if you're going to go in and like look at the DOM of the marker, it's not just a picture on the map. It's there's a picture for the foreground, there's a picture for the shadow, because you remember a marker kind of has a shadow on the map the way it sits. There's also pictures that are used when printing, so there's print versions of the markers as well, because not every browser can handle like printing like a ping image, for example. So usually like you'll hand in a GIF for some browsers. There's also, you need to know the size of the marker. You need to know where you want the info window to open up on the marker. You might want it to open up on the top of the marker. You might want to open up on the bottom. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different things that define a marker with a G icon, right? So it's a little, there's a few properties here. So in this case, we're changing the image, we're changing the shadow, we're specifying the new size. It's going to be smaller this time. These are actually the icons that were used by the Ride Finder. If you guys ever used it, it was for finding like transit and stuff. Now it's integrated into Google Maps. So then we do the shadow size. And some other stuff. So first we're going to set center on the map, except blah blah. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're creating 20 markers. So you see it's in the loop, and we're going to give them at random points on the map, and give them this icon tiny that we've already defined here. So once again, we're using we call this the G marker options object. So let's just run it and see what happens. Yay, little markers. But now let's replace it with a different image because I find these boring as well. Okay. How do we get
Tiny
the
lolcats.
bar that lets me click the URLs? All right.
Notice he didn't tell you.
I forgot. An overlay is any extra stuff on top of
All right. What do we want to
just
search
the regular
for?
map. Like
What
a
would you like to
little
see me define?
marker and a think so.
Track. All right, so then I always look for small images. Oh, that looks awesome. We should totally do that. Oh, cool thing is you can make images be animated GIFs. Oh, we should do that. Do you think this one's animated?
You hope so.
I hope so too. I mean, yeah. All right, I don't think it's animated. Oh, that looks cool, right? Okay, wait. I don't know. Okay.
Sailor.
You know, everybody knows he was the best character these days.
Yeah, I thought he was. Oh, and there's that guy who was on Reading Rainbow. He was cool.
Lamar.
Jordy.
Yeah, that one. All right, so let's just change. We're just going to change the image here.
Wow.
So I just put in the URL there. Let's run this.
Hilarious.
Yay! Okay, but let's make it bigger because right now it's sizing it down. So
Oops. It didn't get
you
rid
know
of
what
them.
No, it didn't get rid of the markers. It just adds.
Yeah, I don't think I had a clear overlays in there. Properties. So let's look at the size of this. 33 by 45. So icon size 33, 45. Nice, nice.
Okay.
Yay. Okay, very nice.
Professor Zucker.
If you wanted to actually clear the overlays, because I think somebody was talking about that, you can just do. Well, you can't do it in caps lock. You can do map.clear overlays, and that will clear like all the markers and any other overlays that are on the map. So there we go.
Yay.
That's amazing. Okay.
So if you wanted to do a shadow, you had to Photoshop the shadow.
Yeah, and I actually do have a screencast. If you're familiar with Photoshop, I put together a screencast that goes through the steps of like creating every single property of a G icon. It's kind of it's a little complicated when you really want it to look good. But I did see there's an online website that I just saw it recently. Maybe it's search for like Icon Shadow Maker that will automatically generate a shadow for it. Yeah, I saw that recently. That looks cool. All right, so sweet. So the other thing we can do is we added this function that lets you, because a lot of people just wanted to be able to like quickly like change the color of a marker icon just to say like, oh, it's being moused over right now, or just change it to something else on mouse over. So we made this thing called marker.setImage, and what that does is that it changes the image of the icon being used for that marker right then. So an example of using it is create a new marker, add it to the map, and then add a listener to the marker. So here we see the event listening again. So this time we're listening for the mouse over. We could also listen for like the click. And then when that happens, we're going to use setImage and pass in the new URL of the image. So let's just run this basic example. All right, there we go, yellow. Not yellow, yellow. Now what would be better is if when we moused over, it turned into that dude. Yeah. All right, so let's run this.
Playing the card song afterwards.
Yeah, that's cooler.
The thing about set image is that it doesn't change the shadow image, so it's kind of funny. You get the head, but
I think that shadow works really well for it.
yeah, for a lot of
Similar shape.
Maybe it's a good project for Saturday.
Wait, Star Trek?
Yes, Star Trek's always a good project.
So that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
How does the mouse pointer change when you roll over?
Well, since this thing is specified as a clickable marker, in the API we set it to
Can I
have a
change it?
cursor. So, can you change that cursor?
CSS you can. Can you put in custom code?
Or is it in the API?
So you can change the cursor for the default map cursor, like this kind of stuff. Nobody's actually asked to be able to change the cursor for when you go over a marker. Because what it's doing in the Maps API, we're just setting the CSS of that. You can put in a feature request. So we're setting the CSS so that when you hover over that, it turns into that cursor. Because a lot of people do change the default cursor when you're on the map to the crosshairs if they're doing something like clicking on the map. So that's been a common thing. People have kind of liked this cursor, so yeah.
Maybe that's a better project for Seth.
Yes, and we have some bugs if you would like to fix them. Just send your resume in.
And win prizes. Win-win.
All right, so here's an example of marker animation. Just like anything else, you can change properties like set point. Actually, set point is deprecated. I changed it to set lat long because that's more accurate. So anyway, so you can change the coordinate of the marker. And in this case, this is what I call the idiot game. Okay, yay. Have you guys ever played that game online, the idiot game, where you keep avoiding the thing on the screen? It says click and it goes right. Okay, so that's this version of the maps. So ready? Oh, it moved. Oh snap. Oh, Oh, where'd it go? Oh, this resolution is. Oh,
Beating
oh,
you.
oh, 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 God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. So you get the point. So there's a lot of
You
cool
will
games. Like, if
never
anyone
win.
makes a game this weekend on maps, I'll be like super excited because that's what I like to do half the time. Because there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. You've got like the whole world at your disposal plus JavaScript. So just think about it. So I've done stuff like with the set image that we just saw. I did a whack-a-mole game where you like whack the moles that pop up on the map and then go down and stuff.
Tell them about the one you're planning for Thursday.
Great. So Valentine's Day is coming up. So since I'm single this year and bitter, I thought it would be nice to do a bitter post on the blog. So my plan is to have a game where I'm going to geolocate cute like couples, like celebrity couples, and like maybe some people that I work with, like Jason and his girl. And what'll happen is that you'll have like a HUD, a heads-up display, like an aim, right? And then you'll like shoot evil Cupid arrows at them, and then you'll see like hearts break on top of them. So you can use gmarker.setImage for that, right? So the point will be just to get like out of all your heads-up, not that got happening. Okay.
Romantic angst.
But don't actually act it out.
Right, just on the map because that's safe. So I'm not sure. We'll see if they let me do a post like that because I did a really cute one last year. So it's time to be here. So now we have a very common thing that people like doing is clicking on the map, creating a marker. So we have that example here. This is once again just event listings. You click, you add a marker, and then here we go. Very basic. Yay! Okay.
Wait, so if you add all those, is there a way to keep track of like a list of those?
You're welcome to make a JavaScript overlay. Yeah. We don't automatically, like internally we might have a list of all the overlays, but we leave that to you, like how you want to manage your overlays. But generally a common thing is for somebody to have an array of all their markers.
So every time the click event happens,
Just add it.
yeah. So it will give you the reference to the marker. You just push it on the end of the JavaScript.
Right, so you just do like markers.push, the marker object. So this example just shows a info window popping up over a marker. Pretty basic. Once again, we're using the marker click event and then just doing the open info window that we saw before. All right, so polylines. So this is just basically lines on the map. Something interesting about this is that the implementation varies. So in some browsers we use SVG, so that's usually in Firefox. In some browsers we use VML, that's Internet Explorer. And then in some browsers, like Linux Firefox, we actually go and send a request to a server on Google that will stitch together an image and return it and overlay that on top of the map.
Oh.
So that's interesting because then because sometimes you'll get really good performance for some things. Because I wanted to make this slingshot game where you pulled a slingshot on the map and then let it go. Now this worked great on it because so every time you moved, the polyline would update, right? Because you're like pulling the slingshot. It worked great on my Windows machine. I went and used like the Ubuntu and the lab, and it was performed horribly because every single time like I was pulling at it, it went to the graphics server and made a new request and put new images on the map.
Oh.
So it's arguably there are some problems with that, but sometimes it's great to have an image because you don't want to have like a bunch of because SVG VML they like create a lot of like elements in your space, right? Making images only creates a couple images, so it's there's some drawbacks to the techniques depending on what you're doing. But anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. You just give us the in this case an array of coordinates, and then you just it's similar. Gpolyline is also Goverlay like markers, so you have to do it with add overlay. So you do a new Gpolyline with the points. You can specify as well. You don't see this, but if you specified more stuff, you can specify the stroke, the fill, a couple other things. So there's an example. This is in some funny country, Russia. Anyone know what country this is? Oh, Thailand. Okay, it's close. So this is in Thailand.
Not really.
And so yeah, this is great if you want to like show like a route going around like various places. And all right, you guys, we kind of mentioned XML HTTP requests yesterday. If you guys are familiar with it, we have a wrapper function for it, since usually it actually takes 12 lines of code to create an XML HTTP request that's cross-browser compatible. So because of that, we made a nice little wrapper function. That wrapper function is called gdownload_URL, so you can use that to grab some XMLs on your server, or even like a text file, and then it'll give you back the data and the status of the request, and then you can parse that data. So in this example, we have an XML thing that's created, has a bunch of marker elements. And then we just go get some attributes, create the latitude, longitude, and put them on the map. So let's try that out. So there we go. So a lot of people use this. A lot of people have like a PHP MySQL database, and then they have PHP that goes to that database, gets all the markers, and then like creates XML from them. And then they send that to the, they use gdownload_URL, and they display that on the map. The alternative would be to actually have your map page be a PHP page and then like have it print out all this JavaScript. But I think that's really painful because then you have to debug your PHP and your database stuff at the same time as your map stuff. And you want to keep that separate as much as you can. So I always recommend using gdownload_URL and just having the PHP generate XML instead.
It's your RESTful API there, by the way.
So the other cool thing is that it's really easy to customize the Google Maps, especially the UI stuff. So I showed how we can like customize markers and stuff like that, but you can also create your own types of overlays if you don't like markers at all and how they act. You can create one that's just like I made one that's like a bar graph on the map because I wanted to show some bar graph data. You can also make custom controls. So all you have to do is extend our various interface classes. So we have a gcontrol and goverlay. So gcontrol just sits on top of the map, and oftentimes like it performs some action on the map, right, when you click it. So the examples are like this and this, right? And a goverlay, it moves with the map. So basically, it's highly customizable. If you don't like the way our UI looks, that's fine. You can completely make your own controls. A lot of people do that. This example, all it does is put a rectangle on the map.
Make it so.
So it's pretty basic. A lot of people use this to like make like a loading screen on top of the map and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. All right, this is an example of our geocoder. So as I was talking about geocoding earlier, I said we had a way to interact with it via JavaScript or HTTP. This is the JavaScript example. So this is going to try and geocode this address here. Well, we could put in, let's put in your address again, right? 2827? 2827.
She knows where you live.
That's very scary.
Yeah, but I don't exactly know his name, so. So here we go. You can see how it geocoded it. Did a pretty good job. Put it, well, most of our addresses end up in the middle of the street because the data usually doesn't say what size it's on. So that's an example of how it's usually never perfect. But so that's an asynchronous function. When you call it with an address, it goes out to the Google Maps server. Google Maps server goes and thinks about it. It's like, okay, I think I got it. And then when it's ready, like a few seconds later, it returns with the, in this case, just a marker object, or sorry, a glet_long object. And then you can do with that what you will. In this case, we created a new marker object. Okay, so that's just Q&A, but actually, not yet. So now I'm just going to go over a couple of the newest features that we added recently. Some of them are more advanced, and some of them are actually really easy to use. So the marker manager, something really common is the fact that people have a lot of data that they want to put on the map. And so we get like questions that are like, hey, I have 10,000 markers, and I try and put them on the map, and then my browser crashes. Well, because I talked about how complex the DOM is for those markers. You try putting 10,000 markers, which is like 10 DOM elements on your map. That's what, 100,000 DOM elements? Most browsers wouldn't be very happy, right? It's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure, so they freak out, they die. So because of that, I always recommend that you only have, well, two things, right? The first solution is to bake your data into images and then actually overlay them on the map as something called a tile layer overlay. And this is basically how we do like our hybrid street labels. That's just a transparent overlay that goes on top of the map. Instead of like actually having like text labels, because all those labels and stuff, you don't want to use text for them. So we bake those into images and then we overlay them on the map, right? So you could bake like all your data as like a heat map or as just a bunch of tiny little dots and then overlay them on the map. The other option is to use something called the marker manager. And what that does is you say like, okay, I want you to display these markers at zoom level 1, and then these markers at zoom level 10. And so that's really good for like mashups where people are like kind of exploring. So then what you do is like at the most zoomed out level, you'd be like, okay, these are like the 200 most popular data points for my set, or the most relevant ones, right? Or like, for example, of weather maps, it'd be the biggest cities, right? So when people are looking at the zoomed out map, they're just seeing like Moscow, Paris, etc., right? And then when they keep zooming in, you keep showing it for finer level detailed data. So the marker manager makes it really easy to do that, and it helps with the it helps the browser because all it does is every time it only loads in the markers for the viewport. So every time you move the viewport, it'll clear the overlays and then go and add the markers that are only relevant to the new viewport. So that means that as long as you've configured it so that you don't have more than 200 markers in the viewport at one time, the way you like set up your batches at the various zoom levels, then it helps out the browser a lot. Okay, so the other thing we have that we introduced recently is something called GeoXML. So we talked about KML. Does anyone know what GeoRSS is? Does anyone know what RSS is? Yay! So GeoRSS, it's quite simple. You just take an RSS file and then you add a little, like GeoPoint element, and that contains like a latitude, longitude. And so this is for people or for data providers that have information that they want to distribute as RSS, but they want to have geo information in it. An example, Flickr actually provides a GeoRSS output for all of their photo albums, searches, stuff like that, since a lot of people in Flickr now geotag their images. There's a site called Taxania, and they have GeoRSS output. So these are basically the two types of geolocated XML file standards we have right now. So we support both of these via this function called GeoXML. And all you do here is, this is also an overlay. So you just pass in, you construct it with the URL, and then you just add it to the map. So you can see this is from keyhole.com. This is actually the old forum for Google Earth, and it's where people would post like all their KML files. So here's an example. This is the airplanes map. So this is a KML file right here. So it'll just, when you do this, it'll automatically construct all the markers for you, all the info windows, stuff like that. So a lot of times people use this if they want to display KML files that people have already created and they don't want to go through the effort of like parsing it themselves. Or if you just want a really quick way of putting a bunch of data on the map, you don't want to deal with all this code stuff, that's one way people do it. It's not that flexible though, because once you put it on the map, you can't really do much with it, like assigning custom events to your markers and stuff like that. But it's okay for some simple things. Okay, so tile layer overlay. I was talking about that with burning your data in. This example I don't believe actually works anymore. How do you go to the file tab? File, go, open, location. All right, let me try this. I'm kind of guessing here, but I think it's right. Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. So here's a great example. They've actually went and baked in all this data. You can actually see like what everybody is contributing to various places, and you can probably like find yourself if you've done it. So they baked all their stuff into images, and then they just define like when it's looking for. We have a certain tile URL construction scheme where it's the X, the Y, and the Z. So the Z is the zoom level, and the X and the Y like starts up here, and then it increases. So they just tell Google like, okay, this is the URL template where you can go find it. So you can see these are just baked in images that they've created. And this is a great example of what you do if you have 10,000 data points. So these people actually have thousands and thousands of data points. We actually increased their geocoding limit so that they could geocode all these points. And at first I was like, well, do you really need it? But then they showed me the site and I was like, wow, this is really good. So this is a great example of what you do. And then when you zoom in, it'll load in higher detail tiles. All right. So just a couple more, and then we're going to start coding. Okay, cool. So ground overlay is simply an image that's loaded onto the map, and it has like a bounding box, right? So in this example, and it's really good for doing like before, after. So we only have imagery from one point in time. It's whenever we took the picture. But you might have a better image of a place or an older image, and you kind of just want to compare it. So, or you just want to like replace our image, do it really easily. So here's an example, and this is actually going to load in a satellite picture of this volcano erupting. So you got to be pretty lucky to be, or unlucky, to be flying over a place when a volcano is erupting. So in this case, we do have a picture from one person that was doing it that we can just overlay onto the map. So this is a great use for it. And ground overlay, actually that term comes from KML. There's an element in KML called ground overlay. Traffic overlay, you guys probably know on Google Maps we have traffic. So we added that to the API pretty soon after we added it to Maps. So this is actually really simple. Traffic overlay is a type of geo-overlay, so you just construct it and you add it to the map. We're not looking at any right now. There we go. So this is another example of a tile layer overlay. These are just images that are overlaid on top of the map.
It's a good
That's
time
not
to
LA.
be driving in
Still.
Mountain View, right?
Yeah, go to LA about 2 hours ago, about 3 hours.
Right, so we don't have time sensitive right now. Who knows?
All red.
Another thing that we added recently is driving directions. That's another thing that we took from Google Maps, and now you can have it in the API. And so we'll give you the actual step-by-step instructions, and we'll even translate it into various languages for you. So if you like to have your driving directions in Portuguese, so be it.
Portuguese.
Portuguese. Or, yeah. Okay. And so here we go. I don't remember exactly right now what the option is. Yeah. But you could translate that if you want. In this example, we're just seeing the start and the destination. You can do load for multiple waypoints if you want. So if you want to get the driving directions from, in 10 different places, you can just hand it an array of waypoints. This is the multi-point example. So you can see this array of addresses here. There we go. Pretty nifty. Oh, that was in French. Do you guys see that? It's totally in French. And some custom UI. So we give you all the information so you can kind of dissect it and pull it apart. All right, cool. So that's all the stuff we added recently. So now do we get to move into the other room? All right, cool. So we have like an hour. We're going to have to kick it. And I've got a bunch of stuff for you to work through.